I'd like to call to order the July 2nd, 2025 Citizens Advisory Committee meeting of the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency. If we can please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Staff, can we please have a roll call to establish quorum?
At this time, I'm only asking those CAC members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphone by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Lily Charlotte Landstrom.
Present.
Aquanette Tyson Thomas is excused. Kate Layden. James Garvin.
Here.
Johnny Teesh.
Here.
Tay Gaines.
Here.
Paula Ryan is excused. Jim Knight.
Here.
Lauren Steef.
Here.
Cheryl Mirante is excused. VJ Mishra.
Here.
Michael Cuervis. Myra Newman.
Here.
James Lafferty.
Here.
Greg Fagan.
Here.
Albert Richwagon is excused. Win Dang.
Here.
Alex Freeman.
Here.
Lissette Hilton. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair. For the record, Kate Layden joined the meeting at 1:32 p.m.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any changes to the minutes?
No, Mr. Chair.
If not, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Jim, second.
Second.
Second, all right, thank you, VJ. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you very much. Instructions on how to provide public comment are included in the agenda. Staff, have we received any general comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay, great.
One moment, please.
Thank you. We're working on the public comment card.
All right.
Just use your name and address.
Hi, my name is Matthew Van Voorthuizen. I live at 302 North B Street in Lake Worth Beach, Florida. Currently, right now, we have a situation with Dixie Highway. It's a deadly road, and we have an option, at least we did have an option, to reduce crashes by 50%. And for some reason, the FDOT decided not to do that. I guess the reasons that I understand as best as I can is that there were a couple of intersections where at peak times there was a slightly longer delay with the plan. And so they rejected the whole thing, which I think is a very poor choice. Because, I mean, if we all believe in Vision Zero, this is not how to get it done. So I would like to see that we reconsider repurposing the lanes of Dixie Highway. And if there are certain exceptions that they need to make because they want to accommodate that traffic at those particular intersections, I can work with that. But the rest of the corridor really does need to be repurposed so that it's just one lane in each direction so people can safely cross the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a reminder of action items on the agenda, are there any conflict of interest forms available if needed? At this time, I want to invite any CAC member comments on items not already on the agenda. Yes. Myron?
I'd like to ask if at a future meeting at which when we have a light formal agenda, that the staff give us a presentation on freight issues in Palm Beach County. We have we deal mostly with road problems, and in the last few years we've had briefings from the port about its plans and from the airports about its plans. But it's been maybe 12, 14 years since we've talked about freight in this committee. And that both freight by rail and on the roadways, including how how it's determined where trucks should go in on roadways and the implications of that. And I wonder if we can schedule something like that in the near future from the staff.
Good afternoon, Myron. FDOT is currently finalizing a study on truck traffic, just as you're alluding to. We can work with them to see where they are in the study and provide something for a future meeting when available.
When would that, what's the schedule for that? Just out of curiosity.
I'll have to get back to you afterwards about it. Okay.
Good morning, Andy Euler, Deputy Director of Programs. Thanks, Myron. Yes, with Matthews, I don't have the answers on that one either, but we can look into freight that's going on right now with some of these studies. And then we can try to bring it back to the CAC, that's the will of the board, or at the will of the CAC to have the presentation. So as long as you guys all agree to have a presentation, we'll move forward with that. And we'll try to get what we can and have a presentation for you.
The last time we talked about it was in the context of the proposed inland port. I can't remember how long ago that was, but it must have been 10, 12 years, right?
That one, yes, there's the intermodal logistics center inland port concept in the Glades community. Not much has come up specifically towards that recently, but there has been US 27 connector studies that FDOT has done.
Right.
There's some other freight studies going on. There's truck parking things going on. So we can get together and see again, if we want to get a presentation on those items. Yeah.
Thank you.
Win?
Hi, thank you. I actually, I want to
Sorry, can
address.
we please get a motion on that?
Oh, okay, fine. You're formally requesting a presentation on freight traffic within Palm Beach County?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Win?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to address the public comment.
Please.
So I am familiar with the project. In essence, that the city of Lake Worth conduct a lane elimination, lane repurposing project to improve safety, going from a 4 to 3 lane conversion. And then, of course, because of traffic, the project was denied by FDOT. So I think this is not the first time this occurred in Palm Beach County. This does not align with the Palm Beach TPA US 1, corridor study and its vision to improve safety and enhance mobility. If this is the trend that's going to continue, I'm not sure if there's any, I know there has been some successful segments that has been approved and moving forwards, but it's not the most equitable segments that needed to occur along the corridor. And and I know that this body and of course staff probably could not answer these questions on why DOT continues to deny these applications. And we would like to hear from DOT on the details of why they and is it just traffic? Does that meet their target zero policy that they have? So it's another request for a presentation from DOT on particularly Lake Worth. You're welcome.
Sorry, and I'd also like to backtrack. Who made the motion for the request? Because if it was the chair, we'll need somebody
Yes.
else to make.
Myron made the motion.
Myra made the motion
Jim second.
and Jim seconded.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, and then moving forward for this, we'll
Before
need
we
another
take up a
motion.
motion,
Yeah.
I can maybe elaborate a little bit on
Please.
when member Dang's comment. The the TPA did a multimodal corridor study for US 1 in the mid 2010s, and we produced a number of segments for improvements, which included bus rapid transit, sidewalks, bicycle lanes, crossings. We have a number of projects which are moving forward and that have moved forward, as when I mentioned, a few, obviously, US 1 in Delray Beach has went from 6 lanes to 4 lanes, I think as early as 2013. We have 2 segments which are moving forward, one in Boca Raton and one in North Lake Boulevard, in North Palm from the Parker Bridge to the city limits in North Palm. So all of those are 6-lane to 4-lane lane repurposing conversions, where the traffic model has shown that in the future, the capacity can be accommodated in the 2045 or 2050 traffic model. Where it gets complicated is the 4-lane to 3-lane conversions. There have been a number of studies that have been done, which essentially show that in 2045 or 2050, there are both still crashes and there are both still congestion. Ultimately, the approach taken with US 1 in Lake Worth Beach was that the TPA in Lake Worth Beach submitted a lane repurposing application to the Department of Transportation. We went through the process of evaluating the corridor, submitted our traffic report. Ultimately, as the member of the public commented on, there are concerns from DOT about the future congestion. Both scenarios with and without the lane repurposing resulted in a level of traffic service F. So the city of Lake Worth withdrew the application pending FDOT denial of the lane repurposing. So FDOT did not want to deny the lane repurposing project, but they wanted to let the city know that they would work with them on other safety improvements, which will come along. We've been working with the city on some concepts to replace that project. I believe that is currently on the list of priority projects now, but the project ultimately informally was withdrawn, just for clarity's sake, although it was a de facto, it seems like it was a de facto denial for what it's worth.
Yeah, and having personally experienced this, it's and it almost feels like we're giving our community false hope that a project with a vision, because I think the vision is aligns with everything. The US 1 corridor study was conducted before the TPA adopted a formalized Vision Zero policy. So this has dated back a long time. And I think the segments that is the most difficult is the most needed also, because those are the areas that we have minority communities. Those are the crashes that occur there are more pedestrian cyclists. And so, if we are going to achieve zero, it's frustrating, and I feel frustration for, our residents. And I just want to know if DOT is not willing to approve any of these 4 to 3 conversion, they need to say it so that we don't give our community false hopes that it could ever be happen.
I don't think that they're not unwilling to approve them, but they have to have the logical conclusion that the traffic would continue to work. But
The traffic will fail with or without any improvements, like, if I heard you correctly.
Well, they would operate at level of service, which obviously we can have a discussion about level of service, right? But it's going to operate at level of service F currently in the future, when the
Right.
adopted standard is E.
Right. So if it's going to be F, wouldn't it be nicer to have a wide sidewalk for people to walk on? So, and I'm not pointing at the shit at you. I feel,
I understand. Yep. And it is frustrating. And we worked on this project. We were hoping for an approval, but ultimately that's how it shook out for this project.
Thank you, Win.
Did I hear you say that the city withdrew its application?
The city did withdraw its application based on the indication that FDOT was pending denial. So the city withdrew its application and was willing to work with DOT on getting some other improvements implemented.
Thank you very much for the background, Brian, and Win. Thank you for the technical knowledge about that situation. VJ?
3 quick comments. Glad somebody brought up US 27 connector. Is there a way I can get some updates when major milestones are reached on the project? Is there a way to do that?
For multimodal, I think I'll let our deputy for programs handle that, but we are going to talk a little bit about that in the next agenda item too. So yeah, I would say wait until the LOPP. Yeah.
Okay. The second is I want to personally make sure that DOT is aware that the work along the State Road 80 on the Lightning project is going. It's excellent. They have made a major progress on that project. So just want to thank them for all the work that has been going on so far and what is coming after that. And third, but not least of all, is like Wellington has started some study on the roundabouts. I had brought this up in the past. I really think that it's a good initiative that Wellington has taken. And I want to make sure that if there is any study or result comes out of that roundabout, I want to make sure that everybody in the board at least be made aware of that.
That's great. Thank you. Do you know what the study is focused on? Is it circulation or?
Yeah,
AP?
it's basically to study the flow of traffic in Wellington. They are going to be adding some roundabouts. So as part of the actual design, they're going to do some study on that one.
Mhm.
And Mayor has took a lead on that one. So I really want to make sure that something, whatever comes out of it, gets shared here at the.
Reach out to the town, the village engineer and
Yeah.
see if he can give us a little more background. Thank you,
Thank
PJ.
Jim?
First thing that you mentioned the DOT. Do we need to have a motion for that to have that discussion, or because we just did that?
I was going to ask Brian, are we scheduled to have an FDOT presentation at any point in the coming months?
Not on that specific item for US one lane repurposings, no. We, I believe, do not have anything with the exception of possibly the draft tentative work program, which typically comes out in either October or December. I think it's October this year due to the session being earlier. So the next possible time would for FDOT to make that presentation, that's specifically geared towards the tentative work program. If you wanted to ask specifically about a project or about a process, then we can elaborate and have that discussion with our DOT partner and ask them what they'd be willing to do. If it's, I would like to have a little bit more information and guidance about what the ask is for them. It seems like it's kind of around the context of lane repurposing and what it takes to get a lane repurposing approved. But that, I know that the lane repurposing guidebook is under an update now based on the statutory changes from last session. So if you're willing to wait, we can make that request to them and see if they'd be willing to come and make a presentation to us about lane repurposing processes. But again, that would be a motion.
Yeah, I'm
To request.
aware that things
Yeah.
are changing or fluid in a lot of ways at various levels of government right now. And so I always enjoy hearing from our FDOT partners on what's going on and
Mhm.
projects that are in our area that are relevant to our municipalities and our citizens. So perhaps we can discuss after or about perhaps getting an FDOT just to get project updates on what's going on and ability to ask some questions, if that's possible.
I'm curious about what the motion
Yeah,
technically would be.
I-
So if someone could make the motion and make it clear, that would be great.
I move to request DOT to for a presentation on lane repurposing. And the status of their updates and what are some of the considered changes that's potentially coming in. So the motion is to request a presentation from FDOT on lane repurposing and the process of lane repurposing. Also to identify additional updates and timeline.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And again, it might not be something that's immediate because of that lane repurposing guidebook update underway, but we'll make the request to DOT at the meeting on Monday.
And maybe there's a way to get some updates on some of the other projects that are going on if they're coming here anyway,
Yeah.
I'm sure they'd rather, do it in one shot, everything if they could. And I like to go back to, if again in time, I'm the chair, they go back to was it late 80s, early 90s when they were widening I-95 here in South Florida. And Tri-Rail was going to be a temporary service, right? It turned out being a permanent service. They still got to figure out to continue how to fund it and so forth. But if we continue just to expand the roads, I mean, I remember, gosh, it was probably in the mid 80s seeing a plan at DOT where they're going to double deck I-95, not realistic or anything else, so forth. But you can't just continue to expand the roads and think that you're going to convince people to use alternative methods of transportation, right? So, I mean, for the people here that bike, I don't bike to work, it's a little too far, and in the middle of the summer, it's difficult. But I think it's important to have some kind of balance, strike a balance where you widen the lanes to a little bit, but then at the same time, you're encouraging other types of movements on those roads and segments and so forth. Because again, if you look at the future here of South Florida, it looks like we're going to continue to grow for quite a while. And 95 is not going to keep up. Turnpike's not going to keep up. And at some point in time, they're going to hit even on those two corridors. And as we all know, I come from South County. It's very easy to get here, and as long as there's not one accident on 95, right? But if I'm going east-west, it's brutal. I mean, it doesn't matter what's taking place. It's almost every day you've got that traffic barrier and so forth. And I think some of the places like City of Boca Raton, where they have a large employment center, so forth, they put together their own bus transit program. I forget what it's called, whatever else, but where they move you from the various offices and so forth. Then they turned around and got a little creative, said, hey, maybe we should have housing where we have these, 7-8 million square feet of office space, so forth. And so they've been, putting things closer together and make more sense. And of course, we've got the Eastward Ho for quite a while now. So I think it's just try to open the eyes and not say it's got to be like IBM in the old days. It's on page 84. We got to do that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that, especially when there's push by developers saying, well, I can't, it's a prop share, right? So they can always build so long as they're paying their proportionate share. But maybe some of that money, instead of going into roads, should go into alternative forms of transportation. Because I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, it'll be past my lifetime, I'm sure, but at some point in time, you get to where it's just gridlock everywhere, and you got to get people used to different modes of transportation.
Yeah, happy to talk with you a little bit afterwards. Totally agree with many of your comments. I think with respect to the motion and like what you were alluding to with specific projects, we'll probably start the design. We should start the design this year for US 1, the section from Parker Bridge to the north city limits of North Palm Beach. So that's by the golf course. So it's basically between two bridges where it's 2-lane roads on the north side, 2-lane road on the south side, and 3-lane in the middle. Excuse me. Yeah. So we'll probably have a presentation about that project here. So that would be a good opportunity to get an update, but then we'll make the request additionally on the extra process. And then you should definitely, when I do the strategic plan later, make sure to tell me to talk about transit-oriented communities, because it hits on a lot of what you just spoke about.
And the purpose of this body is to give feedback on issues brought before us. And so I appreciate hearing from our FDOT partners when that can be arranged. And it's to give updates on not only that topic particularly, but also, like you said, the US 1 or any other significant projects that might work or be under, they might need some additional feedback on as well. But thank you, Brian. I appreciate coordinating that. Myron, do you have anything else?
Yes, it's just a request to members and presenters to recognize that this microphone system is only for recording. There's no speakers here. And it's very difficult to hear in a large room. I couldn't hear VJ, anything he said, and I could only hear about 30% of what you said. So we need to speak up and project so that we can hear what each other is thinking and saying. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Myron. All right. Any other comments? Seeing none, thank you very much. Invite Matthew Mousa to provide an update on the CAC liaison reports.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Today, we're going to start off with the 2025 annual report. Our public involvement team has been doing a lot of great work, and they created a really professional report for you guys. We hope you take a look at it and review the TPA's accomplishments over the last year. And you can also find it online at palmbeachtpa.org/annual report. Next on the list, we have the 2025 or 2050 Regional Transportation Plan, RTP. So South Tech recently adopted the 2050 RTP, and this is the long-range plan for our 3-county system. It's a very interactive website, lots of data. We recommend you go down and take a look at how the region's connecting, and you can go to 2050rtp.com to look at that. Next, we have the 2025 Best Complete Street Policy. So we want to congratulate the city of Boca Raton, ranked number 5 in Smart Growth America's 2025 Best Complete Streets Policies. And to review the full report, please visit smartgrowthamerica.org to see the whole report. Livable Communities designation. So again, congratulations to the Village of Wellington to being the first local municipality to join the AARP age-friendly network of livable communities. There are 960 communities nationwide and 50 in Florida. So this is a great accomplishment to have here locally in the county. And you can learn more at aarp.org/livable. The crash dashboard. So the TPA has recently just launched a new interactive crash dashboard. I think that's kind of relevant for the comments we were just discussing. So it's a great resource that we put together using Signal 4 data. This is from FDOT and UF collecting crash reporting. We've made it very user-friendly and allowed you to digest the data at a local level for your municipalities and also along more engineering terms like functional classification, roadway speedways, lanes of roads, authorities. So we ask that you guys take a look at palmbeachtpa.org/crash dashboard. Vision Zero Action Plan update workshop. The TPA hosted this workshop on June 5th and it discussed the updates to the VZAP. If you want to review this presentation, you can go to palmbeachtpa.org/VZ workshop. Transit-Oriented Communities workshop, which was hosted on June 6th, advancing transit-oriented communities. You can go to palmbeachtpa.org/TOC workshop to review that presentation. The Women in Transportation WTS luncheon. The TPA will be hosting the WTS transportation panel on July 29th, and there'll be local leaders discussing the future of mobility and infrastructure. So we encourage you to register at palmbeachtpa.org/events. FDOT project design and review training. The TPA will be hosting a workshop on August 19th at 9:30 a.m. to review the project design process and learn how local agencies can engage with FDOT more effectively. To register, you can go to palmbeachtpa.org/project review training. And then e-bike and micromobility safety workshop. TPA will be hosting a workshop on September 10th at 9:30 a.m. to discuss legislative updates, e-bikes, e-scooters, and design strategies to integrate micromobility into the local transit network and safely. You can register at palmbeachtpa.org/micromobility. And then last quick updates are Safe Street updates. Visit palmbeachtpa.org/safety for grant updates. We encourage everyone to sign up for our newsletter at palmbeachtpa.org/newsletter if you haven't done so already. A lot of great updates from our public relations team. Get involved. If you want to find out, go to palmbeachtpa.org/events for additional events and to find all these workshops listed there. And for additional resources such as the crash dashboard, our community profiles, TPA mapping, the new tip tool, go to palmbeachtpa.org/resources. And that is it.
Thank you, Matthew. Staff, are there any public comments on this topic?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. Do any committee members have items to discuss? Myron.
I've only had a minute or two to flip through the annual report, but I don't see anything about how the TPA depends upon the work of its committees, like the TAC and the CAC and the bicycle committee and whatnot. Is there a message there that you don't really care about us?
I don't believe that's the case, Myron. But it is a very nice report and it is useful information. I do encourage us all to take a moment and read through it as well. So. All right. All right, so on to action items. Items 2A, motion to recommend adoption of the fiscal year 2731 list of priority projects. I invite Andrew Euler, Deputy Director of Programs, to present on this item.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Okay, so this is the list of priority products for fiscal year 2027-2031. So we just last month adopted the Transportation Improvement Program for 26 through 30. So this is already getting into the motions for the next tip, right? So I'm up here fairly often throughout the year to go through these core products of the list of priority projects, the draft 10F4 program, and then the Transportation Improvement Program. So this one is going to be covering 27 through 31. The one that we're now operating under is 26 through 30. And I always like to point out the new fifth year, which is going to be that outer year of 2031. And the reason why we always sort of focus on the new fifth year is typically that's where the majority of funding is available to fund new phases of projects with federal and state funds. And so A lot of the requests that you see in the backup and in this presentation are going to be geared towards the new 5th year unless otherwise noted. And this is a very similar slide timeline that we show for all of our TIP processes and how we get to TIP development. And it really starts with product development out of the long range transportation plan. Products are filtered through their line items in that plan or their programs in that plan that then go into the list of priority products. And so when we're looking at products to go into the list of priority projects, it's really about looking at the vetting of those projects, going out in the field, ensuring they're feasible. So we do that with the locals who are going to be implementing the project with AFDOT and staff. So there's field vettings, there's cost assessments, there's local support for these projects. Once it's all confirmed, we can then move forward to putting that in our list of priority products to try to get these phases underway. That's occurring now in July, and I'm going to be going through those priorities that are either new or changed from the prior lists. And so anything that's already programmed in the Transportation Improvement Program, I'm not going to have too many highlights on that. That's already provided in the backup. I'm really going to focus and emphasize on those changes. And then once that list is adopted, it's then sent to AFDOT. AFDOT uses that list to develop their draft tentative work program. So they're updating the cost estimates. They're looking at their new revenue sources and projections, and then balancing the work program and putting in the new priorities of the state, and then also the MPOs and other partners. It's seen by the governing board. This time around, it's going to be October 2025. The legislative cycle, which has to approve the work program in the end, varies by year. So sometimes it's an early cycle, sometimes a later cycle. So this past TIP was actually presented in December. This time around, it's October. And the time frame for what AFDOT has to get this thing turned around is fairly short. So it doesn't always align with our committees being able to see this full document. So the way we approach it is it does go on the governing board agenda. And then we send out an email to the other committees to ensure that they can provide their input to us. And it's only really seen at the governing board level. But in the end, that final one is with comments is given back to AFDOT to make their final draft tentative work program. And we use that work program as the final basis of our TIP, which will be operating under next year. And again, that'll be adopted in June of 2026, just like we adopted one last month. And just to emphasize again, sort of the pipeline that occurs when it comes to projects, right? So projects have different complexities. They may have multiple phases. Some may have larger studies involved. Some may have right-of-way, some don't. Some may have much larger construction timeframes. But really what we're looking at is trying to have a pipeline of projects, and it moves through the Transportation Improvement Program as those phases occur. And the sections we're talking about today are just those in the TPA priority products. The TIP as a whole includes multiple hundreds of projects from other sources such as the Strategic Intermodal System, airports, riverports, seaports, and other projects. This one's just focused on those main ones that the TPA has some more prioritization over. And funding availability and what we anticipate in the coming years annually for funds that we have a little bit more direct prioritization over. I know, Myron, that you've requested this in the past with what's a better understanding of like, here's our request and this is how much money is available. What's it really going to look like in this upcoming program? And what we have is anticipated revenues of around 40 million for major products and local initiatives. That comes from both federal and state funds. The first is the federal funds, and they're called Surface Transportation Block Grant Funds for urbanized areas. So these are those funds that are given to MPOs to prioritize based on population in their urban area. So those are our prioritization dollars for MPOs. It's around $23.8 million to spend towards those. And then there's state highway system funds, which is meant to be spent on state roads, mostly coming from state gas taxes. And that's roughly 16.5. That number does vary more so than the federal one because there's a lot of priorities within that state budget for those. But that's generally the ballpark of what we anticipate over the average of years. And then we have transportation alternatives, which are also federal funds, and it's $5.1 million total. And those are urban area funds, just like I mentioned for the SU ones above. They're for urban areas. And then we have any area, which is the state's version of that, which they also get to the MPOs to prioritize. So in total, you're looking about $46 million. One thing I wanted to note, sorry, just a quick detail on this. They are anticipated revenue in the outer years, right? So TA is going to be in 29 because it's a 3-year program. The other ones are in outer fiscal years of 2031. And it's important to stress here the anticipated part. These are if everything stays steady moving forward with these federal transportation dollars that are available and the state dollars that are available. Our current federal transportation bill is the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That federal bill runs to the end of next year, 26. So after that, these are all speculative numbers. It typically remains steady, but it could be increased or decreased. That IIJA actually increased our TA amount. So we had an increase in TA to fund products, and that's what bumped us from a $1 million max per product to 1.5 million because we had more money to put towards that. So we may see changes as those discussions gear up into next year with the new federal transportation bills. Just wanted to mention that sort of how it plays out in this revenue forecast. So we have 3 main pots or programs we wanted to mention. First is major products. So these are ones originating as line items out of the long-range transportation plan that we have, our 25-year planning document, to advance the TPA's vision. It's usually a well-rounded amount of products that are eligible, and then what we prioritize could be safety products, reliability of our system, complete streets, transit, technology, resiliency. And the eligible roadways for these are, if it's a state roadway, it can use those state funds because state funds can be spent on state roadways, and it can also use those federal funds. For the non-state roadways, you can't use those state funds on majority of those funds on non-state roadways. That's really where that federal funding pot comes in. It's a 5-year time frame, so new phases typically come out in that new 5th year. So this would be 2031. And there's a lot of requests in here for funding, and I'm going to go through them briefly, and I'll touch on a few of them in more detail that have already been mentioned during discussion earlier during our meeting. And so these requests, again, are just ones that are highlights. And so when you look at the backup, you'll see the table of the fiscal year 31 requests. And what we're trying to do there is really give a picture about a request about what is the true phase of what could be funded next. And that's what's going in that column. Anything that we believe that cannot be funded is still in an outer long range estimate column, but that could also be funded as well if funds were available. The first one is US 1, which is a land repurposing product. We were just talking about. This is going to be up in the North Palm Beach area, Lake Park to North Palm Beach. It's North Lake Boulevard to Parker Bridge. Designs already in the program. So this is requesting the funding of $11 million towards that. That our anticipation here is $11 million. We still try to seek other funding sources to help with this as well. This is one of the Sun Trail designated corridors, which is a state pot of money for shared use facilities. Always trying to push for that on these kind of corridors. And then also this is on our regional network and looking for some state funds from that pot. Next is the one that was discussed earlier that was originally land repurposing, which is now a reconstruction. And since now we have a sort of concept to move forward that isn't the land repurposing, but reconstruction with some safety benefits, seeking design in outer year for those. Next is the US 27 connector project, US 27 to State Road 715. And so this one is looking at ways to connect US 27 and deviate off of the State Road 80 Main Street in Belglade to divert traffic to other roadways instead of through the Main Street corridor there on State Road 80. That study is still underway. It's almost being completed by FDOT. They put out another survey to locals in the area to try to get more feedback on just their thoughts on the different alignments. Those alignments are all, I believe there's 4 of them. They're all still going to go forward into the PD&E later on in a few years here. But they're still finishing up. When there is that final study, I'll let you know, PJ, once they get all that in. It should be done here in the next few months. This is going to the PD&E. So this is that next more detailed product development and environmental study for this in the outer year. Then after that, there's a lot of signal products coming through for Palm Beach County and Boca Raton. I mentioned these last month during the Transportation Improvement Program adoption process. We have slated here around 7.6 in right-of-way acquisition, and then construction 8.7 on multiple products for those. That's a lot of signal hardening, providing additional treatments at the intersections for advanced traffic monitoring systems in the future. We then have 2 safety products on Forest Hill Boulevard and Congress Ave for construction. And then for major products to round it out, another one is on Indian Town Road. And there is already a product development environmental phase that is in the work program that's about to start up. And the next part after that PD&E is design. So we're requesting design in an outer year. This is one of those requests, though. It's under $1 million so far for the budget we have here. And so with that small amount of money and PD&E getting going here, design may be able to move forward before 2031 if funding is available. So that's one of those ones where the phase is of such a small value and it being a design phase. If FDOT can accommodate that in their overall production process, they'll probably be likely to move that up before 2031. Then we have more signals for Palm Beach County and Boca Raton. And then we have a US 27 freight rail corridor study. So this one is a regional priority of Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach MPOs. And FDOT and the TPA, working on this US 27 connector study, which is a roadway project. This one is looking at building rail along the US 27 corridor all the way from Miami up to Martin County. So the way that would work would be they'd extend rail through Miami, Broward, up into Palm Beach to the Glades area, and then connect to an existing rail line. This is just a long-term study, just to look at that feasibility. There's been prior studies that have looked at this a little bit, but this is sort of bringing that back up for our region. And the request here is our portion. We put in there planning funds of around $1 million. And then Broward and Miami-Dade are also seeking to put funds towards this for FDOT to go out and do this study. Request total, $40.8 million. Local initiatives. So this is another set-aside program that we had in the past that we're wrapping up. These were submittals by locals. All our jurisdictions, the county, would submit for these products and they would administer them. We have 2 outstanding products to finish up some funding for. The first is a request for Barwick Road with shared use paths, and it also changed the limits to Boynton Beach city limits. So this is a Delray project, and it's asking for another $1.27 million. And then we have flashing yellow arrows for Palm Beach County traffic signals. And just to brief you on the flashing yellow arrows, a lot of those county projects for signals are starting to install these flashing yellow arrows. You may have already seen them installed in a few places throughout the county. This is just a few pictures that I pulled from their website. They have more of a PSA on their website about how flashing yellow arrows work. But basically, you instead of having just your protected left turns, it does allow it also for a permissive left turn with a flashing yellow arrow at certain parts of the day, so you're not stuck there if there's no traffic coming. So during certain parts of the day, it may change to a permissive where you're able to proceed with caution through that intersection. And then during other parts of the day, it may just be a full-on protected left where you can go with the green arrow. And then we have a transportation alternatives program. This is a smaller pot of money. It's $5.1 million annually. These are going to be in year 3, so fiscal year 2029. And it can be used on or off the federal aid system. So even though they're federal funds, they can be used off the federal aid system. And on the right here is actually a new project that is almost completed. So this was taken this month. No, wait, we're in July now, aren't we? So last month, June 2025, this is in West Palm Beach. This is the North Shore pedestrian bridge. And this is putting in a pedestrian bridge there with a wider bridge that you can just drop in, and it takes only a few days to install. So we've seen a few of these treatments come in now throughout the county. This one's connecting across the canal there. These are capped at $1.5 million, and we have 4 new projects for in fiscal year 29 request for $5.5 million. The first is going to be Northeast 2nd Avenue, shared use pathways from Lake Worth Road to Congress, and that's $1.29 million. I believe that's in Palm Springs. Give me 1 second, everyone. I want to make sure I get this correct. It is. Okay. And the next one is Military Trail, shared use pathways, Gardens Lake Drive to I-95. And that's going to be 1.43, and that's going to be in Palm Beach Gardens. Then we have Northeast 4th Ave intersection reconstruction and speed management for 1.5, and that's going to be in Delray. And then we have a Palm Beach County project on Kirk Road, shared use pathways. And so when we say shared use pathways, these are large enough to accommodate both pedestrians and bicyclists. It's at least 10 foot wide on all these for those shared use pathways. We just wanted to point out one of those designs, and this is the Northeast 4th Ave from Swinton Ave to 7th Street in Delray, which is going to put in those traffic calming measures and an intersection reconstruction and speed management. So the way these work, as I mentioned before, we get design plans, high-level design plans, cost estimates, support, local support on these, proof of ongoing operations and maintenance. When that gets all collected, we can then put it into our list of priority projects. And so that was submitted for this project. This one actually originated a little bit more with a walk audit that was done with local stakeholders and planners and engineers out in the field. And so that walk audit identified some key issues and treatments they could put out there. And then Delray Beach submitted, based on that walk audit and other review, some of the treatments to put out there with traffic calming. So it has enhanced crosswalks, it has better curb radii, it has medians installed for speed management. And so that's what they're submitting to this project. So each project that you're seeing coming through the Transportation Alternatives Program and our other programs, when it gets into like that level, design and construction, we're getting this to sort of see before we put it into the list of priority projects. Next steps, my last slide. I know that was a lot of information. It's July for committees and governing board. That's then formally submitted to the Florida Department of Transportation. Every MPO within the state is doing this process for this list of priority projects. They then create their draft tentative work program, working on our priorities, other priorities that are coming through for the locals in the state. That's then presented to the governing board for comments. And then after that, they draft that work program, which is how we ultimately develop our transportation improvement program. They're one and the same. And that's in May. And then we have final adoption in June for our effective start date in July. So I know there's a lot of information. Hopefully I answered a few of those questions related to products that were brought up earlier, but I can take any more questions. It's an action item for today.
Staff, do we have any public comments?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, any questions from the committee? Myron.
I'm having a little trouble with the word priority. My impression, as you described it, Andy, is that this is a priority for this is dividing up the money that's pots that are available. So these are the projects. It's the priority for spending money. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
So the list that we have, is this in order of priority, or is this just are they all priority projects because for dividing up the money?
It's a good question. So it's twofold. The first is, let's think about it from this one at a time here. The first would be the major projects. So they are in order of priority of when they were put into the list of priority projects.
So the first chronological, right?
Chronological, yes, because of the whole sort of work program production schedule, right? We don't, if a new project comes online, it typically won't jump other product phases. Because it'd be hard to keep the program stability with that. It'd be hard to keep a production timeline. So basically, even though it might be the greatest product of all time, we anticipate it to come out in an outer year. And then if funds become available and we try other ways to accelerate, we'll try to do that. But you're still seeing it in the order of chronologically, like you mentioned, yes.
Okay, because I look at it, I look at the first one on the list, of course, is funding of TPA.
Mhm.
And that, of course, is our highest priority. But the third one of the projects would seem to me to be a higher priority in implementing the vision of the long-range transportation plan. That is, getting people out of cars and into mass transit. And I wonder whether having them listed chronologically doesn't send a signal about what the intellectual priority
Mhm.
as opposed to the money priority, because they're all money priority, okay? But as you said, by definition, and whether there's some ordering of these projects that would send a signal to the public about what TPA thinks are the more important projects. I mean, for fulfilling the vision of the long-range transportation plan. Each of these projects has value. Okay, I'm not arguing about their value, but I'm wondering about the message that the chronological list sends.
Yeah, I understand. And I've contemplated that, and I've seen other MPOs. Many MPOs do it in this fashion, with sort of the chronological with some level priority. I can take that into consideration. We can think about it a little bit more, and talk to other MPOs and talk internally about how we could sort of figure out what we're trying to get at with that. I understand where you're coming from, with how we can score them and maybe show that, or show a priority score system. So there is that, and I think on top of that, sometimes we also, although we have some level of a numeric scoring system, like objective scoring system, there's always that level of objective scoring systems can only do so much. And there is like other political ones that go into it, or equitable concerns about where funding is distributed throughout the county. So those things factor in as well with trying to show this a different way. But I definitely understand where you're coming from about, is the number one product on the list always, or whatever the order is it there because of its chronological, or is it the number one priority? I can definitely say from a year to year, if you see 20-1, 20-2, that was definitely 1 and 2 that year. And that's sort of how we show it that way. But your point still stands. I understand where you're coming from there.
The notion of scoring projects against the objectives of the long-range transportation plan, which you put up in an early slide, would be very interesting. That would, so maybe you could add another column or some other indicator in here about, for achieving those long-range objectives. This gets a little extra push.
Yep, that's a good point. Brian's showing the strategic plan next agenda item, and part of that is a call for products and an LRTP process for amendments. And that's something we should consider, is how we can better visualize that and how scoring and prioritization sort of works at the same time of this more chronological list at times.
Because truth be told, much of it is political interest of local communities. They want an improvement. And we fit all those things in together, but there is a long range plan, and the question is how to advance that long range plan while you're satisfying the local interests.
Okay. Thank you, Myron. Vijay?
One quick follow-up on that is, when we are thinking about, like, you may be thinking of today's board, we are sitting here, that is our priority. We need to forget when in 2013, when they were thinking at that point of their priority. So if we decide we want to forget their priority and today we want to bring our priority on the top, what if 5 years from down the road, the next board says, you know what, 25 was not a good board. We want to make sure our project goes up now. So we need to be very careful about trying to change the precedence from what has been going on and try to keep it as, because when we are gone, our priority is also going to be there in the list in long term. So we want to make sure somebody actually follows through on those. Just another point of view to think about.
Oh, I understand, and I mean, that's why I say, you know, that the refer to the local political interests. I mean, and the money has to be divided up. I'm just saying for a signal, not something that's used for decision making, actually dividing up the money, but a signal about how each project reflects the goals or achieves the goals of the long range transportation, which changes every 5 years. That's all.
Thank you. Any other comments? If seeing no other comments, can I get a motion?
So move.
Second,
Second.
motion by Win, second by Jim. Are we doing a roll call?
No, not.
Okay.
Okay.
No, we don't need
All
one.
right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. All right, and our next item, motion to recommend adoption of the fiscal year 2026 strategic plan. I'm going to invite Brian to speak on this.
Hi, everybody. Brian Risher, Deputy Director of Multimodal. Andrew always gives me a hard time about this presentation because I have to start it by saying Happy New Fiscal Year. We're happy about that. Here today to present the 2025 report card and 2026 draft strategic plan. So as Mr. Massa alluded to, we're very proud of our public involvement team and all of the work of the TPA staff, governing board committees, and the work that we've accomplished over the past fiscal year. You'll get in this presentation a pretty good and detailed look at some of those accomplishments. So starting off with 2025, a look back of what we accomplished. We met all of our metrics across the report card for fiscal year 2025, with the exception of one, which I'll get into. But just to kind of run through each of these, I've been told that I can take a right of personal privilege and pick my favorite one from each of the categories and give you kind of a brief on what those accomplishments were. So I'll be brief, and we'll start with plan the system, goal number 2. So last year we embarked on an endeavor to create a transit-oriented communities policy for the TPA. This is now published online at palmbeachtpa.org/mobility planning resources. So we're all familiar with the TPA's long-range transportation plan. There's a transit element within that plan, which looks at what we call the 561 network. Transit-oriented communities is a approach where the agency is going to take to work with our local governments to ensure that the land use and the zoning for communities actually reflects the need for those transit corridors. So we're taking a hard look at what other communities have done, like in Miami-Dade County and Hillsborough, with respect to transit-oriented development. We're trying to piece together corridors that we need to have certain level of densities and intensities to meet thresholds for certain different characteristics. So light rail might have a higher threshold than like a bus rapid transit, for example. For goal number 3, prioritizing funding. Really happy that we have a revised list of priority project structures. Mr. Euler alluded to, we have that now. You just voted in to approve that LOPP structure. So we're really happy that that has moved forward, and we'll elaborate on why that's important for the call for projects as we move into the next part of this presentation. For goal number 4, implementing projects. We have obviously helped our communities implement projects, safety improvements with respect to complete streets elements. We're really proud of that, as well as identifying municipalities with project identification and grant submittals. We're really proud of that accomplishment. I believe that there might be a typo on the slide where we've helped 11 communities, not 5. With project identification and submittal. So that is that's a really big accomplishment. For goal number 5, we obviously hosted the Safe Street Summit. We're really proud of that, as well as meeting all the needs to help local partners with plans and studies, complete tours, and site visits. And then lastly, for administering the agency, of course, we provided all the trainings that we needed to. Most of the goals and targets that we hit were over 30 to 50% of what our target was for fiscal year 25. So we really smashed it this year with respect to a lot of things, with one exception, engage the public. So let's talk about that one. Goal 1B, last year, fiscal year 2024, we had for 1B, that target was 125,000. We had a total of 350,000 users reached. So we felt like we could try to meet that again this year. We hit 232,000 users reached on our social media engagement. So if everybody could take out their phones and go through the last 12 months of TPA content and just we might collectively get there through our committees. But that was the one goal that we really stretched based off the prior performance. And we ultimately almost doubled what we got from fiscal year 24, but we didn't hit the mark of 350K. So what are we doing this year? Coming up, our draft fiscal year 2026 strategic plan goals. I'm going to keep with the theme of trying to pick my favorite and moving forward as we go through this, but I might sprinkle in a few extras per goal. So goal 1, engage the public. There's a little bit of a different approach and attack this year for engaging the public. We are trying to move into a system where we're providing more information about how we engage with the public and informing the public on how to engage with us as an agency. So for goal number 1, we are going to actually create how-to videos of how to use the online tools that TPA has available. I know Mr. Massa is going to be doing a presentation soon about one of those tools, but we want to create 5. So we obviously have our TPA crash dashboard, our community profiles, our interactive tip tool. We're going to create videos on how to utilize those tools so that the general public has a way to figure out how to use that thing for their benefit, and that transportation planning officials, planners, engineers, landscape architects can also use them as well. We're also going to work on a 5 E's safety education toolkit. So this is based around education, encouragement, engineering, evaluation, and enforcement. And we're going to create a toolkit around that for transportation planning and promotion of safe system use. For goal number 2, plan the system. This is, again, going back to our conversation earlier about how we grow in the communities and the likes. You know, we know that we're bounded more or less by the Everglades to our west, the Atlantic Ocean to our east, and most of our right-of-ways are fully built out. So unless we're going to have a conversation about double-decking roadways, as you know, we've alluded to in the past, we're going to have to figure out how do we start moving people in a different way. So that's one of the things that we're going to continue to look at in transit-oriented communities, trying to find a way to look at systems to bring them forward so that we have a good east-west, north-south system for everybody, people driving, people walking, people taking bicycles or transit. We're also going to work towards the creation of a Safe Routes to Schools action plan. So we'll look at the state statutory language, which classifies potentially hazardous walking conditions, generate a data-driven map set, which basically tells us where those conditions are in the network that we plan for, and work with communities to try to prioritize some projects. And I'll give you another one just for planning the system. It's my favorite goal because most of the objectives fall into my shop. A pedestrian, bicycle, and micromobility safety study. So last year we did a micromobility rail access study. We want to build off of that and expand it to a countywide network to identify, we haven't quite landed on a number yet, but 10 to 20 key pedestrian and bicycle projects that also accommodate micromobility and work towards getting those projects into a plan. The last time we did a similar effort like this was about 2014. So it'll be a nice refresh about 10 years later to have another look at the system and where we're at. For goal number 3, prioritization of funding. So we, as I mentioned before, we have already gone through the process of updating our list of priority projects. This year, we're really excited to take the work that has been done since the long-range transportation plan, the LOPP as you just adopted, and build it into something we were calling the call for projects. This is essentially our annual evaluation of the projects in the long-range plan, all 1,300 of them, bringing them back to the community and saying which projects of these are ready to go, with an emphasis on the projects that obviously score well, so that we have a really good understanding of what projects are ready to move up into the list of priority projects in the next year. So that LOPP cycle, as Andrew alluded to before, it's really an annual project basis. Like we're constantly updating things in that LOPP. And this is the start of getting our documents to speak a little bit better together. We also, from goal 3, are going to attempt to prioritize some rail safety projects. We've already, committed millions of dollars towards rail safety for quiet zones to get implemented and for other safety improvements to get implemented countywide. This will be another kind of passover to ensure that there's nothing else we can do to try to reduce rail safety incidents. For the implementation of projects, the Florida Department of Transportation is currently working on what's called their Transportation Systems Management and Operations. So what that means for the everyday person is that they're trying to figure out how they can get more capacity from our road system without actually widening lanes or adding more lanes to a road. So this deals with things like upgrading signals. It has to do with how the road is operated, maybe the implementation of roundabouts. For example, on 95, metering the entrances to 95, which has happened in South County, are means to where we can basically stretch that capacity just a little bit further without doing a really big capital project. So congestion management for us looks at that process of how we're going to implement and prioritize projects. It's currently folded into our performance measures, but based on the DOT update to their plan, we felt it's appropriate to also look at how we're doing our congestion management process. Last slide here. Obviously, I mentioned that we hosted the Safe Street Summit this year, and based off of the success of that, we are also planning to host a Think Bike workshop in January, which will be a session or a few-day session where we're going to have Dutch Bicycle Network designers come to talk to us about how they've built out their networks over time and what you can do in the interim and then in the long term to really build out a low-stress bicycle network. I'll keep up with all of the site visits and tours, but those are ones that hopefully we actually get some involvement specifically for the some of the things that may be hosted here in West Palm Beach. We can get your involvement as well. For administering the agency, we're talking, this is more of like the financial side, just streamlining the standard operating procedures that we have kind of all stored away in different, documents and whatnot, just creating a more streamlined process for having those kind of laid out in our good repository. So with that, that's all I have. And I'd like to obviously take any questions that you might have, but we are seeking a recommendation for approval of the 26th strategic plan.
Ruth, are there any public comments on this?
No, Mr. Chair.
Any questions from the committee?
Me.
Lauren?
Early on, you mentioned a typo, but like it was 5 communities, but it was meant to be 11 communities. How are you defining community?
Oh, good question. So community in my speak is just a broad term for, who has applied to the program. We helped Palm Springs, Wellington, Lake Worth, Lantana, West Palm Beach County. So it's really just jurisdictions.
Okay.
If there were transit operators there, we would also include them too. But those generally are the ones that we're tracking and supporting. We could also obviously track others, but that's our key partners who I just listed off. Cities and counties.
Any other questions? BJ? Nope. Okay. All right. Alex? Yeah. Okay. Can I get an entertain motion? So move. Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Okay.
opposed? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee.
All right, so next is an information item, which is an overview of our interactive tool and mapping for TIP. So staff will provide an overview of the TIP tool and other resources to receive public review and input. The TIP tool can be viewed at palmbeachtpa.org/tip. So I'm going to invite Matthew or Andrew to do the demo. Matthew? Okay, great. Matthew, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So today we'll be reviewing the TIP review tool. That is our new interactive application that is a separate website, but it allows you to review the TIP, the LRTP, and previous TIPs as well. So as we build out the database, you'll be able to look at the historical context of everything that we fund here at the TPA. Thanks. So just a quick overview again, we do have lots of applications. I'll just drive the point home. We do have a lot. I'll show you briefly on our TPA mapping where you can access the TIP information and how you can actually get to our website there. But you can also go to our tip page, tpa.org/tip to review the application separately. So we provided multiple ways to access the information in multiple digestible forms to make it as easy and accessible for everyone. So again, like I was saying, if you go to palmbeachtpa.org/tip, it's that little box at the bottom there, tip review tool. If you click that, you'll get to the tool, and it's a separate web dashboard. And then in TPA mapping, so palmbeachtpa.org/map, you can actually just toggle on tip layers, which are usually the first 3 or 4 layers on the map. And now in the pop-up windows, you'll have options to either link to our tip project page, which is the tip review tool, or if there's an FM number that directly links to FDOT's work program, you'll be able to review their FM work program page that's directly updated and maintained by FDOT. So you'll have both options to review projects now. And then just some general overview notes about using the tool before I get into the just showing you on the actual website. When you come in, this is the main dashboard that you'll see. It's going to be a project list with a lot of search options. You have your project session, lead agency, type of work, status, construction, your jurisdiction. You'll be able to print out Excel documents from this. So you can actually filter out if you're a specific jurisdiction and you need a list of projects for whatever reason, you can filter it out and that table will be printed out in an Excel form for you. Same thing is if you go to the interactive map, and again, I'll show you this in a second, you'll be able to see the projects listed there. And this is not just for the tip. I just want to remind everyone that, and I'll show again, that the historical tips and the LRTP will be available in this format. So you want to go to the website? So on the main TPA website for the tip, we'll just scroll down. Actually, let me show this one first. So if we go to TPA mapping first, so let's say as an example, maybe we're looking at the current tip year, which is the FY 26 to 30 tip. You can come in. We'll just pick a random project here in downtown as an example. And let's say that you want a more detailed information or you want to look at the FDOT information. You can actually open up the link. It'll be taken to the FDOT work program page directly to that project. So if you need their schedule of activities or a funding breakdown, if you want to check if things have been updated, you can view all that information here directly from our website. And if you want to review the tip review tool, which we'll be going over now, you can click the next link, which is the TPA or the tip project page to one. And you'll be brought directly to our dashboard and the link of that project in our dashboard. And it'll give you a map. It'll give you the ability to download the project as a one-page summary. So in our backup, when we provided the full tip document, those one-page summaries, you can download them here. You can share this page with other people if you need to. It provides a general overview of general descriptions, who it's managed by, general information. And then what's really nice is that you can actually go down to the bottom here and get a full breakdown by phase, fund source, prior to the current tip. So we're in the FY 26 tip. So everything's summed before that, the breakdown into the future by phase. And then other options you'll have in this format are you can actually see the fund history. So for instance, this project was also found in the 25 to 29 tip. And you can see that it's actually in the snapshot and the final versions. So you'll be able to see the historical context of the funding and how that's changed over time between tips. And then with the review tool itself, you'll be welcome to this page, which is the projects tab. You'll be able to look at specific IDs, the lead agency, the section, which is like the project type, and you can enter project titles. If you need additional search options, those are available. You have to toggle these independently. So for instance, if you want to look at a specific construction year, let's say it's 2019 for just random sake, it'll format the dashboard to provide whatever projects adhere to that search. And if you want to reset that, so let's say you don't want to use this anymore, you actually have to hit the reset button or toggle off that filter. It will not do it automatically. So make sure you always hit that reset button, and it'll reload the full list of projects available to review. And then one final note is that if you want to review different tips or different projects, for instance, like the LRTP, you can actually go up and toggle between the different list of projects. So if you're interested in reviewing all the LRTP projects, you'll be given a list of those projects filtered out already, and then you can filter it further and get all the information you might need for that. And the last thing of note is our interactive map. So this is the same thing as the dashboard or the projects tab. It provides the same information, but just now you have an interactive map that you can toggle in and view, just like TPA mapping. And you can either click on the projects on the map itself. I do it correctly. Or you can also click on the list, and that's based on what you're seeing currently in the spatial area of the map. So, and when you hit export and either in the projects tab or the interactive map tab, you'll get a printout of all the information in a nice Excel table for use. So, and again, when you click on specific projects, it brings up that tab on the information on that project. So it's all interlinked. It's all there's multiple ways of accessing the information. And there's multiple websites that have similar information all linked together for your review. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's such a invaluable tool that, in level of transparency, it's really nice to see, and it should empower all of us to be able to go back to our communities and answer questions about what's going on. Questions. First of all, is there any public comment on this, Ruth?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, great. Questions from the committee. Wynn?
Hi, thank you so much. So I am a frequent user of your website. So if you check your website, most of those clicks are probably mine. And I have used all your tools, including the open source data hub. And so I just want to say, first of all, thank you. It's easy to find information, and so much has changed in the past like 3 to 4 years of all these online tools that I see such a huge difference. Now I know that I have younger staff. They probably think it's a lot of numbers, a little more, in their opinion, boring, but it's very important information. I do think that, some of the links that you have on your GIS website that links to DOTs, I know a lot of cities have their own project websites also that they've created, whether if it's, one of the example you showed is 25th Street, the city of West Palm Beach on their city engineering website has a project page with some, more detailed milestones. And I know it's probably, we can't do it for every single project, but if it's available, I think for the general public, they like to see if it can be linked to other websites. And I know it's additional work for everyone. So obviously, please don't look at me. If I can help, I would love to send you those links.
Don't worry.
Thank you, Andrew. I see you in the back there.
Matthew's done a great job already and he can answer this question too. But he's done a great job of already getting these on here. And it's great when it's things that are like a consistent link and we can just like change the final path of it at the end. That's why the work program works for us, because it's all the same website with the FM link at the bottom at the end. For the individual pages, I think we can start incorporating that. That's a good idea. And we can try to do that. If nothing else, maybe we can just link to the main product page of whatever the city is, right? So if they have an overall like product status page, we could do that. But if there's specific sites that
And
that'd be good
again,
to put in
I'm
there.
happy to help. I know
Sure.
I know it's added work for
Yeah.
you guys to update your GIS database with extra fields. So if there anything that my office can help,
Great.
just create a better tool for everybody.
I think it's a great tool. So yeah, but sounds like it could be useful. So
Yeah, no, definitely will. I appreciate that. I do most of the GIS, so you help me out a ton with all the coding.
any other questions or comments? All right, seeing it. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. Items 4A through 4D are informational only. There will be no staff presentation unless requested by a committee member. Anybody wish? Nope. Seeing none. Are there any comments on these items?
No, Mr. Chair.
No. All right. Our next CAC meeting is scheduled for not July 2nd,
September 3rd.
September 3rd, 2025. At this time, our committee meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, no problem. It's just hidden.
No worries.